we are finding the reciprocals of common fractions. So this assignment is going to be quite easy. So we're only going to spend one day on this, but you're going to need to know this before you are ready to divide fractions. So even if you find it quite easy at first, pay attention because some fractions are a little bit more complicated than others. So first, let's read the directions together. It says to find the reciprocal of a common fraction, invert the fraction. To find the reciprocal of a mixed numeral, first change the mixed number to an improper fraction, then invert it. To find the reciprocal of a whole number, first make it a fraction, then invert it. So what I'm going to do here is pick a few exercises, even ones that aren't in the sample section, to help you better understand how to make reciprocals out of these fractions. So here for the first one is the simplest kind. So here we have just a normal fraction. All you have to do to find the reciprocal is invert it. So in this case, we have 3 over 4. The reciprocal would be 4 over 3. Simple. Here for the second sample, I put it here on the notebook paper, we have 1 and 1/2. And the way that we find the reciprocal for 1 and 1/2 is to first change it to an improper fraction. So just like we did on Monday, we're going to multiply 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3 over our denominator 2. But we don't stop there. Remember, we're finding the reciprocal, so we have to invert it. So it would be 2 over 3. So that means the reciprocal of 1 and 1/2 is 2 over 3. So just don't forget, once you change your mixed numeral into an improper fraction, you have one more step. Then, when you are finding the reciprocal of a whole number, we're going to actually go down here to number 4 to use number 4 as an example. So here on number 4, you just have the number 12. Now remember from our previous exercises that whole numbers can be made into fractions by just putting a 1 under them. So once you make your whole number into a fraction, you then can invert it to find the reciprocal. So you would have 1 over 12. So again, for every whole number, you just put a 1 under it to make it a fraction, then flip it. Don't forget the second step, which can happen a lot. So you have 3 kinds of fractions that you have to invert or find the reciprocal of. You have the proper normal fractions that you just flip. You have your mixed numerals that you have to find the improper fraction first and then flip. And then you have your whole numbers, which you have to make into a fraction and then flip. So I encourage you to go back to the beginning of the lesson if you need to go over it one more time. But here we have our 2 samples and our whole number. Now here for Wednesday, November 18th, we have a lesson, compound pronouns. So here, just like last week where we had quite a few reference pages, this one is going to be also a reference page. So although you don't have much written work on this page, it's important that you read it and that you come back to it as you complete the following exercises for the week. So we're learning compound pronouns today, and we're going to go over the examples and the directions together. It says here, the suffixes self and selves can be added to the following personal pronouns to make compound pronouns. And here we have some examples. My, myself, our, ourselves, your, yourself, like singular, just one, your, yourselves, plural, him, himself, her, herself, it, itself, them, themselves. Compound personal pronouns are used in the predicate to refer back to the subject or to add emphasis. They do not take the place of personal pronouns, and here are some examples. They can defend themselves. This compound pronoun refers to the same person as the subject does. So notice it does not replace it. It just adds to it. We have they and then themselves. We have a few more examples here, but you will notice they're all about the same. They refer to the subject in all of these. In this last sentence, though, just to point out, we're actually using it, this compound pronoun, to add emphasis. So it says here, Mr. Smith himself did the work. So notice how you can say, Mr. Smith did the work. That is a complete sentence that makes sense. But just to add emphasis, this sentence includes, Mr. Smith himself did the work. Notice how that adds to the sentence, adds emphasis. Emphasizes the noun Mr. Smith, but it doesn't replace it. Notice that. So here, for look closely, we always get some tips. Sometimes we learn things that we may be saying wrong, just common errors. So on page 70, here on Look Closely, it says, never use the incorrect forms, his self, their selves. Oftentimes, you may use that, but that is wrong. So here's an example. Jared walked home from school by his self. No, that's wrong. Jared walked home from school by himself. So just notice those little errors that you may confuse every once in a while. The boys made themselves a treehouse. No, the boys made themselves a treehouse. And we have a few more examples you can go over, but pretty much the same concept. Here on Think A is your only written exercise for the day, but you're going to be using your reference up top. You're just going to study the incorrect uses of these common compound nouns and then rewrite them correctly. So here it says, my sister and myself missed the bus this morning. So it may sound right away, but it's actually not. So in this case, it's letting you know that myself is acting as part of the compound subject. A subjective case personal pronoun is needed. Now, where do we find our subjective case personal pronouns? If you don't already know them by memory, you must go back to page 66 and 67 as a reference, and then find which pronoun can replace myself to make this sentence correct. So really you're just replacing one word in these, and then you have one more on the bottom, and then that will be it for Wednesday. So here for Wednesday, for our spelling assignment 13.3, this is where your definitions are going to come in handy. And hopefully by now you've been looking up your pattern words and especially vocabulary words in the back of the book. Here you have pairs of homophones. Now it even says, look up each pair in the dictionary. So by now, if you have them, this is going to be much easier. Because they have more than one meaning, you're going to sort them. Which of these fits in which sentence? Here we have presence. Presence, well, what kind of presence? So here, for number 1, as one example, it says the blank of algae is vital to marine life. Opal received 6 blank on her birthday. Which one goes where? In this case, as a sample, presence goes here. The presence of algae is vital to marine life. That means it exists there. Look up the definition. And then this one's quite easy. Opal received 6 presents. And that makes sense. Sometimes you can know both by just doing one that is familiar to you. Here we have horse and horse, prophet, prophet, guest, guest, missed, missed.